Alright, so today I'm listening to this piece by Mexican composer Victor Rasgado called Alebrijes. It's a suite for orchestra in 3 movements. The only recording I was able to find of this is titled Movement 3 Rock, which actually is Movement 1 in this score. So maybe there's a mistake on this end, or maybe there's an alternate version of the piece where the movements are flipped. So yeah, orchestra piece written in 1995, and the instrumentation is 2221, 4221, timpani, 3 percussion, and strings. Now, on this instrumentation page, it technically doesn't say how many flutes, how many oboes, clarinets, trumpets, or trombones, but if you go forward into the score, you can see that, for the most part, it's single lines, but occasionally you see 2 notes at a time in the part, in rhythmic unison, and I think this note up here, although I can't read it and I'm not going to translate it, I think it has something to do with like the way that the parts are supposed to be read. This might have been a youth orchestra, maybe a student orchestra. So I think it makes sense that you would have this notation where like either wind player can play the part or both of them can play it at the same time when it's just 1 line, and then when it's 2 lines, then they have to have a little bit more independence. Sorry, my mistake. These are timbales. So there's 2 of them, but there's 2 drums to a set. So the tuning of the timbales are FD and BG. And yeah, so my instrumentation subtitle will reflect the fact that there's no timpani and there's just 4 percussionists. Percussion 2, bass drum, 4 wood blocks, wood chimes, bongos, congas, medium gong. Percussion 3, tubular bells, large gong, suspended cymbal, tubular bells probably, triangle, cymbals, I guess, and military drum, and one thing I have to translate, and 4 cowbells, more or less. Then percussion 4 has a tam-tam, 4 cowbells, 4 rototoms, and which should be tuned to C, F, B flat, E flat, I think. And then the like mallets required, I guess this is for all percussionists. You need like a hard, soft, and a semi-hard, and the cymbals are for those mallets are listed here. This is pretty standard. The filled in is the hard mallet. Yeah, and you can see that like this is a nicely handwritten score. You have the classic ties written with a ruler, which is always very neat. And I can appreciate the straightforwardness of this score. It's seems very easy to read. Maybe it's printed on something other than tabloid or like legal. I'm not sure. If you want the biography for the composer today, Victor Rasgado, you'll have to go to our first episode with him featuring his music. That episode number is down here. I love getting back into the early 90s scores, because at that point you do get a lot of handwritten scores, and it's like a simpler time almost. There's no, people who learned how to compose actually learned how to compose. They weren't just like bullshitting in notation software. They were actually doing it. If you want the recording that I'm listening to, it's only about 7 minutes long, and the link is in the video description, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, yeah, so this one is eluding me a little bit because The first, I want to say, like 11 pages, let's say. Yeah, the first 11 pages are like note for note what is in this recording. And then in these pauses between these brass hits, choir enters, and then the piece kind of completely derails and has a completely different, like, second half, you could say. I think it's from around here on. But anyways, it's kind of an interesting piece because I think at this point I am a little bit familiar with Rasgado's style, but this is like tailored to a student ensemble and like a little bit of a simpler level of playing, and student choir at that too, which is has to be handled even more delicately. And it's kind of fascinating how he still keeps this sort of like edgy modernist like dissonant style, but makes it easy to perform. Lots of like sort of drony things towards the end, like a lot of the piece has just a single drone in the choir, which turns into like this chattering at the end, which I think is very effective. With like the orchestra doing shots of this or that chord, he relies really heavily on brass and woodwinds, I think, because it's easier to get good intonation out of them. The strings have sort of a lesser role to play. There's a lot of brass actually throughout the piece. And there's also this fun like entering of voices of the choir, right? So usually he gives the choir a note in the ensemble to like latch onto, and he just creates these sort of clusters one note at a time, and sounds very like easy to pull off. So yeah, it's a cool little piece. I wish I had the actual score to this version. I guess maybe he wrote three pieces under the same title, and this is the third one, whereas I have the score to the first one. It's not entirely clear, but if you liked this listening session and it interests you, I encourage you to like look into it further, see if there's something out there. Hopefully next listening session I will have an actual score that completely corresponds to a recording. I know the past two have been sort of like misses, but yeah, I'll try to let me see what it is first of all. It's a piece by Anna Lara, and I have listened to this one before, so I do know that I have the complete score. Hopefully I can find the complete recording again. It's been many years since I listened to it, but it's a good one. And I think it's one of her more famous pieces. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, Anna Lara hasn't disappointed yet throughout all of our series, and I think it's going to be a really good contribution to the orchestra series. So yeah, hopefully that one gets pushed by the algorithm a little bit.